Look at me again and you're fired. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 34th floor, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors of Meridian Financial's executive suite. The city below looked small from up here, a sprawling landscape of buildings and streets where thousands of people went about their ordinary lives. Up here, in this corner office, things felt different. Things felt important. Things felt controlled. Marcus Chin stood at the window, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He had been the CEO of Meridian Financial for 7 years now. 7 years of climbing higher, pushing harder, demanding more. His office reflected this philosophy. Every line was sharp. Every surface was immaculate. Even the air seemed to taste like efficiency. He had built this company on one simple principle: attention to detail. People noticed things. People looked. People observed. And if you were being observed, you needed to be perfect. This was his world. This was his rule. Today, like most days, would be full of meetings, decisions, and the constant stream of people who wanted something from him. Marcus had learned long ago that wanting things made people weak. He did not want. He commanded. He directed. He decided. But this morning, something felt different. The day began ordinarily enough. By 10 in the morning, Marcus had already fired 2 employees, a junior analyst who had submitted reports in the wrong format, and a communications coordinator whose email contained a typo. These things mattered. Precision mattered. Excellence mattered. It was during the strategy meeting, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that he saw him. The man was part of the product development team. Marcus recognized him vaguely. They had never actually spoken. The man sat near the back of the conference room, listening intently, taking notes. His name was written on the name plate in front of him, David Morrison. Marcus did not like David Morrison. Not yet. Not really. But something about the way the man looked, slightly wrinkled blue polo shirt, tired eyes, the faint smell of something like baby formula lingering around him, irritated Marcus in a way he could not quite name. During the presentation, David raised his hand. He had a question about the timeline. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. He spoke carefully, as if choosing each word with precision. "Sir," David said, "if we move the launch date forward by 2 weeks, we'll need additional resources for testing. I'm wondering if the budget has been adjusted to account for." "Morrison." Marcus's voice cut through the room like a knife through silk. "Look at me when you're speaking." David's eyes rose to meet Marcus's gaze. There was something there, not defiance, but not submission either. Just a tired, quiet steadiness. "Now," Marcus continued, his voice dropping into that dangerous register that everyone in the room knew to fear. "Let me explain something about how we operate here. When I approved this timeline, it was approved because it is achievable. If you're suggesting that my decisions are not grounded in reality, then perhaps you don't understand the standards of this organization." David swallowed. He started to speak. "Don't." Marcus raised one hand. "Not another word. Not unless I ask for it. Do you understand?" David nodded slowly. "Good. Now, to answer your implicit question, the budget is exactly what it needs to be. We do more with less here. That is how we maintain our competitive edge. We don't make excuses. We don't ask for adjustments. We execute." Marcus turned back to the presentation, but not before adding, quietly, "And Morrison? Look at me again without my permission, and you're fired. Is that clear?" The words fell into the room like stones into still water. Everyone watched. Everyone waited. "Yes, sir," David said. His voice was barely a whisper. The meeting continued for another hour. David Morrison did not speak again. He did not look up. He did not even seem to breathe very loudly. When it ended, he filed out with the others, keeping his head down, keeping to himself. Marcus felt satisfied. Discipline was important. Discipline created excellence. This was basic logic. He told himself this as he returned to his office. He told himself this as he reviewed quarterly reports. He told himself this as he prepared for his evening. Another meeting, another dinner with investors, another opportunity to maintain the appearance of absolute competence and control. But something nagged at him. Something small and uncomfortable. That evening, as Marcus sat in the restaurant, listening to a venture capitalist describe his latest investment opportunity, his phone buzzed. It was an email notification. A mandatory workplace incident report had been filed. David Morrison was requesting a transfer out of his department. Marcus read the email 3 times. David had written, very carefully, that he appreciated the opportunity to work at Meridian, but he believed it would be best for everyone if he moved to a different team. His performance evaluations had always been strong. He was simply seeking a change of environment. It was the perfect corporate non-apology apology. The kind of email that said everything without saying anything at all. Marcus felt something strange. It might have been satisfaction. It might have been something else. 2 days later, Marcus's assistant knocked on his door. Her name was Rebecca, and she had worked for him for 4 years. She was efficient and calm and never caused problems. "Sir," Rebecca said, "there's a situation. You asked me to pull complete attendance records and background files on all product development team members. I've compiled them as requested." "Fine. Leave them on my desk." "Actually, sir," Rebecca hesitated. "I thought you should know something before you review them." David Morrison, the man from the meeting. "I don't need commentary, Rebecca. Just the files." "Of course, sir. It's just, he's won 3 industry innovation awards. His division has the highest retention rate in the company. The product he helped develop last year generated $2.3 million in additional revenue. And his performance reviews, all 9s and 10s. "Thank you, Rebecca." She left. Marcus opened the file himself. Rebecca had been thorough. Very thorough. David Morrison, age 38. Single father. His file contained a copy of a custody agreement. His daughter was 7 years old. His wife had passed away 3 years ago. In the file was a note from Human Resources. Morrison had requested flexible hours to accommodate childcare arrangements. This request had been approved during his wife's illness and continued after her death. The reason Morrison often arrived a few minutes late and left precisely at 5 o'clock was not lack of dedication. It was because he picked up his daughter from school. He was the only parent she had. Marcus set the file down carefully. He thought about precision. He thought about excellence. He thought about a man in a slightly wrinkled blue polo shirt who took time between work meetings to care for a child who had already lost one parent. He thought about what attention to detail really meant. The next morning, Marcus did something he had not done in 7 years. He took a walk through the offices without an agenda. He did not call meetings. He did not demand reports. He simply walked. He found David Morrison in the product development lab, working at a computer station. The man did not notice Marcus at first. He was focused on his work, his fingers moving quickly across the keyboard, his mind clearly engaged in solving some technical problem. When David finally looked up and saw his CEO standing there, his entire body tensed. His eyes went wide. His jaw clenched. "Sir," he said carefully, "is there something?" "Walk with me," Marcus said. They walked in silence through the office hallways. Other employees watched. This was unusual. This was notable. This might mean something important. They ended up in Marcus's office. Marcus gestured for David to sit. David sat very carefully, as if afraid the chair might disappear beneath him. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said. He said this while looking out the window at the city below. "That is not something I do often. It is not something I do well. But I owe you one." David said nothing. "I treated you with disrespect in that meeting. I did so without cause. I did so without context. I did so because I believed that projecting authority was more important than treating people with basic human dignity. I was wrong." Still, David said nothing. "I read your file. I learned some things I should have known before speaking to you. I learned that you are, by any reasonable measure, an exceptional employee. I learned that you have responsibilities outside these walls that matter more than anything happening inside them. I learned that you have already been grieving, and I added to that burden through my own arrogance." Marcus turned from the window. He looked at David directly. "I cannot undo what I said to you, but I can tell you that I was wrong, and I would like you to withdraw your transfer request." David's eyes were glistening. He blinked several times. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. "Why would you want me to stay? You made it clear that my questions weren't welcome, that my perspective wasn't." "Because," Marcus interrupted gently, "your questions were good questions. They were the right questions. They came from someone who cares about doing things correctly, not just quickly. That is exactly the kind of person a company needs. That is exactly the kind of person I needed to hear from, even when, especially when, I did not want to hear it." David looked down at his hands. "Thank you, sir. But I think the transfer is still for the best. It's not about what you said. It's about, I can't work for someone who might say it again. My daughter, Emma, she's been through enough loss. I can't bring that kind of stress home. She doesn't deserve to have a father who's always worried about. That won't happen again, Marcus said. He meant it. He could hear it in his own voice. That's a promise I'm making to you, not as your CEO, but as one person to another. I was wrong, and I know it now. David looked up then. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding. Recognition of one person's struggle reflected in another's journey. If you want to stay, Marcus continued, I would like that. But I will not hold it against you if you choose to leave. That choice is yours. And either way, your transfer will be processed immediately if that is what you decide. No repercussions. No complications. Your next position will have my personal recommendation. David Morrison did not transfer. He stayed. Over the following months, Marcus changed many things about how he operated. He learned to listen. He learned to ask questions instead of making declarations. He learned that the people in his company were not resources to be extracted, but individuals with their own lives, their own challenges, their own worth. He met Emma at the company holiday party that December. She was 7 years old, with her father's careful, observant eyes. She shook Marcus's hand with the seriousness of someone much older. My dad says you're the boss, she said. Yes, I am. He also says you learned something important about how to treat people. Marcus looked at David, who was trying very hard not to smile. Your father is right, Marcus said to Emma. And I learned it because of him. The story could have ended differently. The story almost ended differently. There was a version of this world where Marcus remained unchanged, where David left, where both men continued on their separate paths, each believing their way was the only way. But in this world, in this version of the story, something else happened. A man in a position of power learned that true leadership is not about demanding perfection. It is about recognizing the imperfect, magnificent effort that human beings make every single day to show up, to do their best, to take care of what matters most. And a man carrying grief learned that second chances exist, that change is possible, that sometimes the person who hurts us is also the person who grows because of us. The city looked the same from the 34th floor window. The streets below remained unchanged. But up here, in this corner office, everything was different. The air tasted different. The silence felt different. The quality of attention that filled the space had transformed from sharp and cutting into something warmer, something more human. Excellence, Marcus learned, was not about being perfect. It was about being present. It was about seeing the people around you, really seeing them, and honoring the courage it takes to keep going, keep trying, keep hoping. On his daughter's 8th birthday, David brought Emma to the office. Marcus showed her the city from his window. He told her that her father was one of the best people he knew. He told her that sometimes, the best thing adults can do is admit when they are wrong. Emma listened very seriously. Then she asked, will you ever yell at my dad again? Marcus knelt down to her eye level. No, he said. I will never do that again. Not because I have to, but because I finally understand why I shouldn't. Emma nodded, satisfied with this answer. And sometimes, that is all the wisdom anyone needs. The simple understanding that other people's lives matter, that their struggles are real, that the kindness we offer in the midst of another person's burden might be the most important thing we accomplish all day. This story ends not with thunder, but with quiet, with the sound of a father and daughter leaving work as the sun sets over the city, with the knowledge that the man they are leaving behind has been changed by knowing them, changed forever.